Welcome to another episode of Film Spill, a movie night podcast with today Chelsea, Jackie, and our special guest Jordan. We are a movie podcast. Our focus is on female filmmakers every week. So we discuss women in entertainment.
Yeah, and we also play other little movie night slumber party type games or activities just to keep it fun and fresh. But yeah, our special guest this week, as Chelsea mentioned, is Jordan Pfeifer.
Yay!
She is the founder of ONYX Films, and she is a director as well. So Jordan, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the people if they don't already know, which they probably do.
I'm Jordan. Let's see. I did found ONYX Films in March of 2020 at the start of the pandemic. So it's been going on for a little over a year. And I met Chelsea through ONYX because Chelsea was interested in joining. And then Jackie, we met in film school. And I think the first class we had, or the only class we had together, was childhood in foreign cinema, which was a very specific class where we got to watch like foreign films that pertained to childhood. And so that was really interesting. Let's see. I do directed a lot, like 10, 15 films. Yeah, have a couple more coming out soon.
Yes, busy girl over here.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Always on the move. Jordan's always got something up her sleeve, so it's always exciting to hear from her.
Oh, thank you. What got me into film?
Yeah, like how do you discover your passion for filmmaking?
So the story I tell is that I kind of grew up in like a quote unquote movie family. And by that, I don't mean like my parents are in the industry. They're not. My dad is a doctor and my mom is a real estate agent. But they both have a huge passion for movies. And every weekend we'd watch a movie. Either we'd go like to the movie theater or we'd watch one at home. And they kind of showed me pretty like adult adult films.
Like rated R.
Rated R.
PG-13.
Yeah, like I saw like rated R films from a very young age, like 11, 12. And I remember like the most intense one I saw at a young age was A Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick film. For those of you who don't know A Clockwork Orange, there's a lot of like, a lot of just like violence and like sexual assault and that kind of stuff in it. So I actually saw that when I'm going on a tangent, but I saw that when I was like 10 or 11, and I was a very religious kid growing up. I was like very Christian. And I remember going to Bible study the next day and I was like crying because I was like, I felt guilty watching that. And like, then they all prayed for me.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, so I was exposed to a lot of movies from a very young age. And I feel like that kind of broadened my spectrum of like what kind of movies are out there faster than like regular kids, would, because they'd be watching like things more catered to their age. But I kind of just found a love for movies very early on.
Awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask why you decided to start ONYX.
Yes, so let's see. The name kind of came to my mind, the name for ONYX, when I was developing kind of like I wanted to do like either an all-female like art collective or an all-female just like creative group. But then I was entering I think I came up with it when I was entering like my junior year of college, maybe like second semester junior year. And I was just surrounded by all these really amazing female filmmakers in my class. And they were all just like badass, and they were who I knew I wanted to work with, like in the future, you know? Like I obviously connected with some of the guys too, but especially the women. I was like, damn, like there are some really amazing women in our class at LMU. So I decided, instead of doing like an art collective, like more generally, to do more specifically like a production company that was female-led, female-centric, and that made more films with female protagonists, because I also felt like there weren't a lot of films with female protagonists, and if they were, there were just like a few of them.
And where do you see ONYX in the next 5 years?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah. Because I know ONYX has been rapidly growing within, the year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I have really high hopes for ONYX. I think it's like a unique company, and also we have like 60 plus women in it right now, which is so cool. It's really, really growing. I hope that we can get to a point in 5 years that we are able to have like more money circulating within it to fund our films, because right now everything comes out of pocket for all of our films. And I hope that we are able to reach like a really big audience, and that eventually, I don't know if it would happen within 5 years, I hope so. Eventually we'd be able to pay everyone. And I even want it to be people's sole like jobs and sole income. And I don't know. I have huge, huge dreams for it. But I think that will happen with time and with us making more and more content.
I would love to be like a full-time ONYX lady. That'd be so fun. But yeah, kudos to you, Jordan, for just taking the initiative and being like, this is what I want to do. Let me make it happen. That's just so amazing. And I'm so grateful that you did that, because now I get to be a part of it.
Oh, Jackie, thank you so much. That means so much to me, because I feel like I work really hard on this, and I really, really want it to go somewhere. So that means a lot. And you're awesome. Chelsea, you're awesome too. I'm so glad you got
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy that I found ONYX. I know I was talking about it last week, how I stumbled upon like finding the company, and it was, all through LinkedIn. So if I wouldn't have found Anastasia posting a video about one of your short films, then I would have never known about the company, and this wouldn't have been happening, So it's definitely, everything happens for a reason. And I'm glad that I was able to find this company that I can find other female filmmakers who have this drive and motivation, because it's hard. It's hard to find, a group of people that you want to work with and who want to work with you.
Absolutely.
It's having that balance.
Yeah, I agree. And especially like when we're in a group of, like you're in a crew and there's like a large amount of men, I feel like the women are sort of just overlooked and not really respected on the same level. At least that's been my experience. Like, you're not one of the boys, so you're not really like up in the banter, or you're not really like connecting with them as much in this work environment, I think. And when there's just a group of women that are making films, it's different. It's very communicative. It's like we all are going through the same thing in the industry, so we're all just connecting, And I think it's really special.
Yeah, because it's true. It's still very male dominated. It's like, you got to be part of the man, like the men's group or whatever the case may be. And I've seen that in departments like camera department, gaffer, G&E. Those departments, like, you don't see females very often at all.
Exactly.
So why is that the case? Is it because people don't want to mentor females in those departments? Because it's all about someone really bringing you in, right? That's how you start building up your connections, and that's how you build your way up.
I think it's the case because, especially in those departments, camera, electrical, and like G&E, I think it's more physical. I think holding a camera and that kind of stuff, it's very physical, and having to rig a lighting setup. So I think that women aren't really seen as people's first choice sometimes, because they're I guess biologically not as built as men are, but I know some amazing female DPs and gaffers that get it done way better than the average man would. So shout out to Emma Forthover, killing it as a DP. Her back is like dead right now from all of her camera setups that she has to do. Like she will just have a big camera on her and have to like carry it around, all day for 12-hour days, and she does it flawlessly. And then Kasusha Jenenfeld, she is amazing. She's a professional DP, and she's an ONYX. And then Emily Phillips, she's an incredible gaffer. Her height does help with that. Yes, she's 5'11", so I mean that does help her do the lighting setups and all that, but it's also just talent, skill, all of that, So I mean, I think women can do it, just as good and even better than men can. But I do think it's a physical thing.
Yeah, and I think too, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I remember in film school I had a lot of female friends who started off as production majors and then decided to go into screenwriting or film studies or something less production focused. And I think it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation where it's is it because women are not encouraged, or because it is kind of a boys club and so they don't see women on set and they're I don't want to have to deal with a basically all male crew most of the time? Or is it the mentorship thing, or the fact that women aren't encouraged to go into those lanes? I think it's a confluence of stuff.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think it totally is. It's multiple things, but I do think you brought up a great point about how they're not seeing women really, a whole lot of them in that space, so it can kind of discourage them.
Yeah, because women do take a lot of the production roles. There's so many female producers, but you don't really see female directors.
Female directors are some of my favorite directors. I think they're so different from men in the way that it's just more visceral to me, the films that they make.
Yeah, and that brings up a great point to this week's film, just the emotion behind it, but we'll definitely get into that. I'm so excited to talk about it. This is my first time watching it. So the movie this week that we will be talking about is A Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Absolutely, and it's one of my favorite films that I've seen this year. It is beautiful. It is so beautiful. So I'm so excited to talk about it with you guys. It's a big inspiration, and Céline Sciamma is a big inspiration to me.
Jordan is super into astrology and she can tell us more, but we gave her our information for our birth charts and she is going to reveal them to us and see if this is written in the stars all along. So
yeah, I'm so excited to analyze her birth charts. I took a lot of notes last night when I was reading them. But yeah, a little background. I'm very into astrology, just so that doesn't come out of nowhere. I'm very into witchcraft and
Oh my God, me too. I thought I was the only one. Wait, do you do candle magic?
I've done candle magic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I feel a lot of my films have to do with witchcraft and stuff too. But I do believe in kind of the planets having an impact on our lives. And I even think if it all is BS, it's just very convenient. So we'll see when I analyze your charts, but let's see. Do we want to do Chelsea or Jackie first?
Whichever. Go for it.
Okay, so I've got Chelsea's birth chart up here. In astrology, there's this thing called the big three. It's your sun, your moon, and your rising. And these are sort of the three planets that have a lot to do with your core personality. But there's also your Mercury, Venus, and Mars that have a lot to do with you. But then it's not even just the sign that these planets are in, it's also the houses that they're in. So there are 12 houses, and each sign is in a house, and each house rules an area of life. So, for example, like the 7th house is the house of relationships. So if you had a planet in that house, then that planet, whatever that planet rules, emotion, drive, your romantic life, that area in particular would be the one that is most like impactful to you, or is most like important, in that category. So I'll just kind of dive into it. Chelsea is an Aquarius sun. She is a Libra moon, and she has a Cancer rising. That's her big 3. It's really cool. I also have a Libra moon, so I know how that feels.
That's my emotional side, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And so just in general, looking at your big 3 here, you have 2 air signs in your big 3. You have Aquarius and Libra, and that kind of means that communication, talking, thinking, you're very, very like airy person over here, which is, it's very talkative. Communication is so important, and I'll get more into that because communication is important in a lot of other areas of your birth chart. I'll start out with your sun. You have an Aquarius sun in the 7th house. So Aquariuses really prioritize advancement and progress, especially societal and social progress with the world. So they really get frustrated when like technology doesn't work, and they're like, wouldn't we have better technology by now? And they're like frustrated with like humanitarian type situations, like social unrest, social justice is really important to them. Just the whole like atmosphere of society is extremely, extremely important to them. The second part of an Aquarius, I would say that's kind of the main thing, humanitarianism. The second part with Aquariuses is that they're very unique and different. They're the sign that really like values being different. Like if someone tries to put them in a box and say like, oh, you're like this or whatever, they'll literally fight you. Like they hate to be put in boxes and that kind of thing.
Chelsea's nodding.
I do. I don't like people telling me what to do. Or like I just do what I want to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're probably the sign that hates being told what to do the most.
Yeah, I think that's why I need to be my own boss.
Oh yeah,
because I hate being told what to do.
That's perfect for an Aquarius. Yeah, so I wrote like different, quirky, and also kind of aloof. Like sometimes they can be not extremely involved in emotional situations. They'd kind of maybe step back and watch from a distance. They don't really like want to like dive into your emotions. And
yeah, like I will definitely listen. I'm that type of person that I'll listen to whatever you have to say, but I'm also awkward, so I don't know what to say. So I'm like, okay, like I won't get like emotionally impacted unless it's really sad. When it does get me, like I do tear up, I do cry.
Like people say Aquarius is like the least emotional sign on the zodiac, but I mean a lot of different things in your birth chart can make you emotional, which I have everything laid out, so that's just Aquarius sun. That's just a part of you. So then we look at, also one other thing, air signs in general, Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini, they're just known to be very like clever, witty, and intellectual. Like they really value intellectual conversations and talking about them and thinking about them, and they always have sort of like a witty thing to say. So that's Aquarius.
I do have some quirky things to say sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, I just need to shut up right now. There was a time I was talking with Jackie, And I'm like, I'm sorry, Jackie. I'm all over the place today.
I love that though.
No, I loved it too. We were just going for we're like, let's chat a little bit, and we're like there for 2 hours, which
I
maybe
love
Jordan can get
that.
into, but yeah.
I know. I just talk. I just keep talking and talking.
Aquarius are one of my favorite signs. I've dated a couple of them, which didn't go well for my Pisces sun, but I really value that they
Uh-oh.
like it romantically. No, but I can be really good friends with Aquariuses. But I value that they're so different and so like intellectual, and they always have stuff to say. So now we go into the house that your sun is in. So your sun is in the 7th house. So my sun is also in the 7th house. So your sun is like your like core sort of identity. It's just like overall your identity. It's like yourself. And your sun is in the 7th house, which is the house of relationships. So it's very, very important for you to have a partner. Like it's hard. It's kind of hard for you to go through life without a partner. And you identify within your relationships. So the way you view yourself oftentimes has to do with your relationships. Like you feel more at peace with yourself when you're taking care of your relationships, and if you have like a strong relationship.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess you can say, like, I always try to keep my good relationships and like treasure that. Especially that, you know, you get to a point in your life where you just don't meet people like that very often. So when I do find a really good person in my life, I like keeping them in my life. You know, I treasure that communication. I treasure that relationship that we have, because it's, like I said, it's hard to find something that's good.
Oh, absolutely. And that's very very cool. I am the same way. Like I don't really like being alone. But you know, Aquariuses are the most one of the most independent signs, Aries I would say too. But the fact that you have that 7th house means that you're not just like a lone wolf as much. Like you like to have a partner in life. Cool. Now
Very true.
we delve into your moon. So you have a Libra moon, which I do too, because we have some similarities here. And you have a Libra moon in your third house. Okay, so Libra, scales is a sign, you know, scales is the symbol. Libra is all about like balance, harmony, and like justice. For example, Libras would be good lawyers, that kind of thing. And your moon, which is your emotional self, is in Libra. So your emotions, and Libra is all about relationships too. So you have a lot of like things about relationships in your chart. So, and again, Libra is another air sign. So you have a lot of air. So your emotions are very dependent on your relationships. For us with our moon in Libra, we really do, like if someone in our life is upset at us or viewing us negatively, it'll make us very upset. And we really do care and value our relationships more than the average person would. Our emotions are dependent on our relationships. And a big thing about a Libra moon is that you have an emotional desire for harmony. So like the scales of Libra, you want them to be balanced. You want everything to be harmonious in your life. So in order to make things harmonious, you will concede often. Like you'll give in and you'll maybe concede more than the person that you're arguing with or you're not feeling good about, or that kind of thing.
Like concede as to just give in to the argument and be like, all right, you win.
You will, maybe more than the other person, to try and make it harmonious.
Yeah, I'm probably with my girlfriend. I'm like, whatever, you win. Take the win.
Yeah. So you just want that harmony.
Yeah.
And they're very social too, because, you know, your emotions is in an air sign. And so you're probably a very social person, which I already know you are.
When I want to be. I have my days where I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to be surrounded by anyone.
Agreed. Same. Your moon is in the third house. And then, wow, surprise, surprise. Third house is the house of communication. Again, with the communication, you have it all over your chart. So that means, like, with Libra already being an air sign and a charming air sign, you're very good at communication and charming people and making friends, and just like very good with speaking to people. And you care a lot about making others happy. But it also says that you may be a little judgmental in your life, just a little. Maybe sometimes make some rash judgments.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, like, I social media, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's not like me being judgmental as to say people's success, but you are a little envious
Oh, totally.
that like you want to be there, or like you want that for yourself. So like I do have my moments where I'm like, damn, I want that house, or I'm like, damn, I want that car.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know how you have it, but I don't have it.
Yeah. Then we move on to your rising. So you have a Cancer rising. So your rising is sort of how you appear to others, how you come across. It's sort of like when people first meet you, it's sort of like, so that would be like the sign that people who first meet you would think you are, until they get to know you. It's just how you come across. So you have Cancer rising, and Cancers are sort of like the moms of the zodiac. They're very warm and friendly and loving and want to take care of people, and they're the most emotional sign. So you come across as like warm and approachable, but you also need security, because crabs have a shell. Crabs need a home. They prefer to be secure.
That exoskeleton going on.
Skeleton.
I guess, yeah, security, and like, I want to have a secure job. I want to have a secure home. Eventually, like, I want to have something for my own, like it's things that I crave.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's your big three in your chart. So those are the most important things. I wasn't going to go into the rest too intensely just because there's like a lot, but I jotted down a few notes. Your Mercury is in Capricorn. So your Mercury is like your communication, how you communicate. So Capricorn is like very practical. So you really value like practical uses for information. They're an earth sign, so it's just very straightforward, I'd say. And then your Venus is in Capricorn. So Venus is how you are in romantic relationships. And so for you, you want partners to be attracted to your like competency and intelligence and success, that kind of thing. And then
true.
And then your Mars is in Libra. Mars is your drive in life. More air. You have so much air, the most air I've ever seen in a chart. So it's just communication. Like, you communicate well, and that's how you maybe will kind of get places in life. Just your really good communication and your ability to interact with people well. You're a very good people person.
Well, that's good to hear.
And that's it. That's your chart.
Wow, that was intense. I learned a lot. Like, a lot of things were explained.
Very cool.
Communication is key. But I've learned from a young age, like my mom is a Pisces too. And she pushed me, I know, right? She pushed me a lot to take advantage of any opportunity that I got and to talk. Always talk. And that's what's helped me, I guess, now when I'm trying to network and I'm trying to talk to people, is that I try to take advantage of any opportunity that I get.
Now, Jackie, you ready?
Now, Jackie.
Oh my God,
I'm excited to hear Jackie's.
Excited at the same time.
Jackie's is really cool. So you have a Sagittarius sun, as you probably know, and your sun is in your first house. So the thing about Sagittarius suns is they are just very like, they're kind of an easy sign to talk about because they're just pretty straightforward. They're very into freedom. Freedom's so important to them. Having fun. They're very like optimistic about, different things. Like they kind of see the sunny side of life a little more. They're adventurous. Adventurous is probably the first word I'd use to describe a Sagittarius. Like they want to kind of try everything and do everything. And they're also a little rebellious. And your Sagittarius sun is in your first house. So it's really cool when you see suns in your first house, because the first house is like yourself, your identity. So when you see kind of the sun, which is your overall identity, and the house of like identity and image, that means that you identify strongly with the image that you present to others. You could be kind of self-conscious because of that. But you also present a very strong image to others. Like you have a very particular image that you put out, and you're very aware of that image.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I really just knew the, like, adventurous, freedom, whatever. And, like,
Yeah.
I see that on some level. And I guess, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel stuck, I think is
Yeah.
my main thing. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to feel like I can only do one thing, or I have to just do one thing, I guess, in my life. Like, I want to be open to new experiences. And
That's Sagittarius
um,
T.
so I guess, but like the image, the self-conscious thing is definitely accurate. But I
Yeah.
don't know about the image. Like, I want to put my good energy out there, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that the self-consciousness kind of just goes hand in hand with the image. Like you're maybe self-conscious because you are worried about how like others perceive you, or it's important to you, like how others perceive you. Maybe you're not even
That's
fully
true.
aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, my favorite part. I wrote so much about this. You have a moon in Scorpio. So, Scorpio is just a very like intense sign. It's like, so when your emotional self, which is your moon, is in such a like intense sign, it's so interesting. Also, just to keep in mind, Scorpio is a water sign, and water, like, which is Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, they're very emotional. So we have your emotional state in a water sign, which is emotion. Okay, so Scorpio moons, emotional intensity. They can see kind of right into the core of a person, like facades and all that doesn't like, that doesn't throw them at all. Like they can see if someone's putting on kind of a fake image or a facade, they're just like, that's bullshit. They're like a bullshit detector, basically. They can like just see right into the true core of a person. They may dislike small talk. They're kind of more about kind of more serious things that are going on, and they prefer to have, more heavy conversations and get right to the core of a person again. They also may have a very powerful, emotionally intense life. That's another thing with the Scorpio. If they don't have a naturally emotionally intense life, they may like seek out kind of emotional intensity and intense experiences, and they kind of prefer all or nothing. Like they want sort of all of someone or all of something, or just nothing at all. Like they want the genuineness. And also Scorpio, the sign, really cares about trust. They may struggle with trusting people easily, because the thing about Scorpios again is they can really suss things out, and they don't want to give their all to someone unless they're fully sure that they can trust them. So that they do have a fear of like betrayal and a fear of someone,
Yeah.
fucking you over. Yeah. But when you're all in, you're all in. You're devoted and committed to someone and committed to whatever you're doing. You're very loyal. Also, Scorpio moons radiate strength. They're very strong sign. And another thing about Scorpios, especially in my experience with Scorpios, is they may hold grudges a little. Like if something affects them or if someone like kind of fucks them over, they're not going to easily forgive. So that's that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's all really interesting. I mean, I think some of it definitely hit home. Like, I
Yeah.
think it bothers me when I feel like people aren't genuine,
Yeah.
are being honest with me. So that makes sense. And yeah, honestly, I think I am overwhelmed emotionally a lot just by like situations. And so I don't think I seek out emotional
Oh,
highs. I think like I'm like, we're already,
yeah, like you would feel
yeah.
emotion intensely.
Yeah, like I cry very easily.
Oh, totally.
Um,
Yeah, I could see
yeah.
that. Cool. I think Scorpio moons are so cool. Like there's kind of a lot to unpack there. They have a lot of layers to them. And then now we look at your moon in your 11th house. So your 11th house is the house of friends and social circles. So it's not just like relationships or whatever. It's like social circles. Like it could be like coworkers. It could be like groups you're in, that kind of thing. So you're emotionally your emotions lie within kind of needing to belong. Like you have a strong sense of needing to belong somewhere. You're a friendly person. You work well in collaboration with others. You'd rather work in collaboration with others than solo. You need to feel like you belong and you need support from the social groups that you're in. Like you would prefer to have like a group that supports you, like in Midsummer when she ends up with the with the cult and like is super happy and feels like she belongs. That's kind of an example of that.
So I'm gonna join a cult, is what you're saying.
Yeah, maybe, who knows. Um, Also, another like detail that was in this page I was looking at, you may have many members of the opposite sex close to you. That's just something that it said in there. Like you may like especially get along with the opposite sex. And also you might marry within your social groups. Like whoever you're with or your partner or whatever is probably in your like one of your social groups, whether it be like a friend group or like a work group or that kind of thing. But overall you just feel a need to belong. That's like the kind of the
Yeah,
important thing.
that really hits as well. Yeah, I mean, definitely like, yeah, that's, I'll just say that that's accurate. And then
Yeah.
I like to collaborate with people too.
Yeah.
And I work best in collaboration.
I think needing a community and like groups and stuff, I can relate to that too. Like I always feel better when I'm with a group of like-minded people. Okay, cool. And then you have a Sagittarius rising. So you have your Sagittarius sun and your Sagittarius rising. And rising is sort of how you come across. So it's just like kind of an enthusiasm and optimistic. You come across that way and you like having life experiences. You're just very into like trying different things, which is pretty straightforward. I think Sagittariuses are just they're fun. They like adventure.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in terms of the like way I come across like the optimistic thing, I think people are like I've had people ask me like why are you smiling or like what are you so happy about? And like I'm like I don't even realize that I'm doing it. I'm just like happy to be here, you know?
Yes, and I love that. It's just like positive energy. And just to recap, just to go through quickly some of your other signs, you have a Mercury in Sagittarius, so you have a lot of Sagittarius in your chart.
Oh wow.
And your Mercury is your communication, so you communicate like a Sagittarius. Like you communicate very like fun, kind of maybe more playful pattern of speech. You might like to joke around. You have a Venus in Capricorn, which is what Chelsea had. So that means again that like you like your partner to see you as competent and as successful,
Mhm.
and you care about kind of being a certain way for your partner, which is competent, good, solid person to rely on. And then you both have Mars and Libra,
Oh.
which is your drive in life. Mars and Libra is really good because you guys don't make rash decisions. You think about them. You weigh the options, scales,
Little
and
scales.
you just are maybe more of like a communicative kind of justice-oriented person. So yeah, that's your birth chart, Jackie.
Thank you. Yeah, very insightful. Lots to think about. So with all that said, let's get on to Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So I want to mention off the top that there will be spoilers for the movie, of course, because we're going to be talking about it, and it's available to watch on Hulu if you want to go watch it and then come back. That's totally chill. Also, a quick content warning that because there are brief but not graphic mentions of suicide and abortion in the film, there will probably also be some in our discussion. So if that's not something that you're cool with hearing right now, it's all good, and you can come back next week. We'll talk about a totally different film. Jordan, why did you specifically want us to watch this film?
Okay, there's a lot of things. But right now I'm writing my first feature that I'm going to direct next year. And I'm kind of taking a lot from Portrait, not like the entire thing, like different parts of it, like the atmosphere and the way the women interact, that kind of thing. But yeah, it started because of me writing this feature and kind of drawing from it. It's my biggest inspiration. But also it's probably my favorite movie right now. I think that Céline Sciamma is kind of a genius. I think that this is like this is her magnum opus, because she's made like a few other movies before this, but this one there's so much thought and detail put into it. It is insane. I have a lot to say about it. I just respect it so much. I think it's such a contained movie. It's in one house mostly. It's like a simple concept, but it's so beautiful. Everything about it is beautiful and heart-wrenching, and just, I don't know, I'm rambling.
No, that's great. I'm glad that you have a lot to say about it. The whole time I was like, this scene is taking my breath away. This scene is taking my breath away. Like, just how beautiful it is, the language, their dynamic, the attention to detail. It's so lovely.
So, this film, set in France in the 18th century, Marianne is a painter who is commissioned to do a wedding portrait for Eloise, a young woman who just left the convent. So, Eloise is set to be a bride, and Marianne is doing this painting that she has no idea about. And she observes her by day and paints her secretly at night.
So they hire Marianne to paint Eloise at her house, and she's a young woman who is ready to be married off, but Eloise does not want to be married off. She's a very defiant woman who does not want to be married off to a man, especially a man she doesn't even know, but that's kind of custom in that time period. And then Marianne is a artist, and the film opens up with her like teaching art. She ends up being an art teacher, and that's how the painting gets brought up, because one of her students found this painting that she painted of Eloise, but it kind of triggers all these memories for her. So she's hired to paint Eloise, who does not want to be painted. So they tell Eloise that she's just like her caretaker during the day, and like
her companion,
someone to be her friend, because she's kind of struggling because a lot of big stuff just happened to her. So that's why she has to observe her during the day, and then at night after Eloise goes to bed, Marianne just like tries to remember exactly like how her jawline is and the flicks of her eyebrows, like the hair, and just like it's like she has to examine her so closely.
Yeah, and so Eloise's sister she was her older sister, and she was the one who was set to be married. But then, and we don't really get the specifics behind it, but we kind of can gather that her sister also didn't want that, and so she died by suicide. And then Eloise was brought in as like a backup, because it's like, well, we have to marry someone off to this dude, and it's like, I can totally understand why Eloise does not want to go for that.
Especially now we see she's sort of attracted to women at some point in the movie, so that's probably
right. Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't really know. I mean, we can talk about this later, but like, we don't really know the specific sexualities of the characters, and obviously, like, back then there weren't like same labels that we have now. Are the characters lesbian? Are they bi? Are they pan? Like how, how if they were alive today, how would they identify? And we can't really say for sure.
I think that Celine did that on purpose. I think that she didn't want it to be something that was taken as a problem to identify yourself, that it's just love, which is the first time that you really see that. Because I feel like there's so much emphasis put on showing gay people on screen now. It's like, oh yeah, no, they're gay and this is what they're dealing with, the coming out story. It's like, no, they're not coming out here. There's not a point where they're fighting because someone's backing out from their sexuality. You know what I mean?
There's never in the dialogue, I am a lesbian. No, we just see two women connect and have a romantic relationship that maybe was unexpected for both of them.
Yeah, and they're never like found out, like, which is a big thing because like I feel like a lot of like queer movies, the characters, like somebody catches them like making out with someone or whatever, and then if they're kind of shamed for it, or they have to go through this process of, oh yeah, I'm actually gay or whatever, and like the film doesn't have that moment, and I think that's really powerful too. And they're restricted by the time, obviously, the time period, but it's not ever like they're shamed for loving each other.
I think a movie that's similar to that does that in the same way is Call Me by Your Name. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but yeah, it's not just like, it's sort of just like two men that maybe they don't know, what their sexuality is. It's not really, it's addressed at the end because the older man is Jewish and he kind of decides to stick within his religious boundaries and marry like a woman. But it's kind of gazy, like how The Lady on Fire is. And when I say gaze, I mean G-E, not G-A-Y-S.
Both.
I watched a video essay on Portrait of Lady on Fire, and it was called like The Power of the Gaze, but then like the person doing the video essay was like making fun about how it's like, it's not the G-A-Y-S, it's the G-A-Z-E, but it's both kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's definitely a lot of gazing done and just that eye contact. But when you're watching it on screen, you're feeling it too. That's how powerful it was for me to watch it. Is that I was starting to get chills because I thought something was going to happen. I thought they were finally going to make out. And then they do it when you least expect it. Yeah. They finally go for each other and you're like, yes.
That tension is like palpable. And I think it's really cool because in film school, we learn a lot about like the male gaze and how sort of like men directing films and that kind of thing, they have a particular gaze on especially women. They sort of objectify them, their bodies, and maybe sexualize them more. But I think Portrait of a Lady on Fire is so cool because it's all about the female gaze. Like we have this female director directing a film about two women kind of looking at each other. It's all about looking. It's about the power of looking, observing, taking in people and that kind
of because they're not even touching each other. It's like that one time where they finally have that little like hand slip, but that's it. That's like the only touching that they do before they end up like hooking up for the first time.
Yeah, it's probably more intimate than touching, the looking.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's like really just having that moment with the person and really just taking in who they are. There's a portion in the movie where they're telling each other what they admire about each other, or what they've noticed about each other. And that's very important because that just goes to show it that they're really interested in one another and focusing on who that individual is. Loving everything about that other person, falling in love with their details.
They're sort of like each other's companions for this period of time, and really all they're doing is maybe taking walks together out by the water, and there's just so much intention behind this film. So Celine had mapped out literally everything that she was going to do in production, before production. And by that, I don't mean the typical producer-y things and director things you need to plan before. No, she got so in depth. She got more in depth than I think any director I've heard of has. So a lot of the film does not have score. I don't know if you guys noticed this because I don't ever really think about score, but a lot of the film does not have score. It's very quiet. And a big reason for that is she wanted to set the pacing through the action. She referred to time signatures. I don't know if either of you have played instruments. There's various time signatures, and certain time signatures are meant to cause you to feel differently. Like maybe one will make you feel like things are harmonious, and one will make you feel like kind of like disturbed or that kind of thing. She would set the steps that these characters would take to time signatures.
Holy shit.
To create like the pacing and what the audience is supposed to feel through this. Like she would be like, take 2 extra steps, or maybe breathe 2 more times, or that kind of thing. And she had planned it all out before it was time to direct.
Holy shit.
Wow, she really put thought into like every little thing.
Did.
Now, speaking of every little thing, let's talk about the cinematography in this film is amazing. It literally looks like a painting, and that's her intention. She did want it to look like a painting, and she did a great job by doing so.
Yeah, she did. And it's so cool because it's like the protagonist is an artist, and she's supposed to be painting her portrait, and so she wanted like every frame to be like a painting and to be visually pleasing, because we're seeing this film is through the eyes of our painter artist protagonist. So that's kind of how she sees the world and how she sees Eloise.
Yeah, and the colors. I was just taken aback by the colors and like the light, like the softness, and then also the jewel tones and the way they capture the sea, and like just the way that she shows nature is really, really gorgeous.
Because they took advantage of every moment. Like there was a night silhouette when they're going to sing or going to that gathering and they're singing at this gathering. Even that, yeah. That like chorus takes a lot to actually do like accompaniment, or what is it? What is it called? It's like
I think that's right.
Yeah, you know what I mean, because there's individual sections. You have your alto, you have your sopranos, and they're definitely selected out in order to make like that piece come to life, or to even create the piece in general. You know,
I love the whole color palette. It's so warm. It's kind of like fire, which is a big theme in this movie.
Yeah. So there's a lot of burning. She burns the frame. She burns the dress gets burned.
Exactly.
That was like an intense part. Like that's because that made the film. That was what the film was.
Oh, I'm getting chills because
the idea of it.
That frame it's everything. That's the whole film summed up in a frame. Is when the dress is on fire. Yeah. That is so beautiful. I also wanted to say that I looked up, so Céline Sciamma, I looked up a lecture that she gave at, I think it was a college in like the UK. And okay, just kind of off topic, but she had like a glass of wine with her while she was giving the lecture. So French.
Iconic.
White wine. Now I know she drinks white wine, which is my preference. But she was saying at the lecture, she was talking about screenwriting. And she was saying that she has so how she writes is she has 2 lists. She has a list of things she really wants in the film, like for pleasure, for beauty, for just little images she had in her mind, little things she wanted that aren't necessary, but there are things she wanted to make the film what it is. Then things that are necessary in order for her to like tell the story. And so she would try and incorporate those, as much as she could. But in that column of things that she thought would be cool in the film, like more creative things, one of those was like 2 girls running to the ocean, and we do see that in the film. And then there's a few others that I can't remember right now, but I think that's such an interesting writing process. And then if the things that are quote unquote necessary to the film like are just boring and not in the list of things that she thinks would be beautiful and add to the creativity of it. She just would get rid of it. But the film still works. So
yeah, that's like super visual, and I think that comes across in the film, of course.
yeah.
But yeah, like I think her as a writer director, that's an interesting approach, but it makes a lot of sense. It's almost like a Pinterest board or something.
I love
That's
it.
kind of what I see when you say that.
Yeah, like images, visuals of scenes that she thinks would be, impactful visually, but also emotionally.
I think when you put so much attention to detail and so much love and passion behind anything that you do, especially when you're filmmaking, it really shows in your final product.
Absolutely.
And that's what definitely showed here. It's that all of her attention to detail paid off. Because I don't think she could have done it any other way. I think this is perfect.
It's so perfect. It's a perfect film. Like, I don't think a lot of films are perfect, but this one is.
It's so touching. I got teary-eyed towards the end because you see all this love. It's like you feel bad. You just want them to be together. Exactly. You just feel bad for the circumstances. And even though we're still fighting through these circumstances, it was especially difficult at that time period.
Yeah. And they obviously have a very special connection that is so emphasized throughout the film. Yeah. It's special. It's something that maybe we wouldn't ever be able to experience in our lives. It's so special, so unique.
Yeah, and then at the end with page 28 in the portrait.
Oh my God, I know. And she's already with like a daughter because obviously she got married off. She had her kid. And remember when they were talking about not wanting kids, right? Yeah. That was like part of this, like the discussion. So it was probably like she didn't want this like life. And she's like reassuring that I'm still thinking of you even though I'm in this life.
And it's interesting. It's like a comment on how sometimes life doesn't go the way that we would want it to go. And that's just how it is sometimes. But we want them to want their life and to want these specific things and for those things to happen. And that's creates some tension, it's like the audience desires this thing that's not happening, and that's what makes it so
so memorable.
Yeah.
It's when you have the audience wanting more, because you have that suspense towards the end where it's Eloise and she's crying. And so Marianne states that she didn't look at me. And then you see like a frame of just Eloise looking just straight on, and you're like, turn around.
Oh, the frame where she's like facing forward and we're just kind of seeing her from behind. Yeah.
And you're seeing her emotions change because she's obviously thinking of her. Yeah. And you're like, she's right there.
Yes. That one is so crazy. Yeah.
No, a lot of emotions went towards the end of this film. A lot. Rage, anger, disappointing.
So much. I cried a lot.
I also wanted to talk about like just the motif of the paintings in general throughout the film, how it like is symbolic of their relationship and sort of the phases it goes through. Like the first painting, clearly she doesn't know Eloise very well, and they haven't developed that bond yet, and Eloise notices that.
Yeah,
and she's like mad, which is so great. I'm like, that's not me. Like, I love it. And then a big moment that I didn't really notice when I first watched it, but on second watch, was Eloise waking up to Marianne sketching her. And then Eloise is like happy about it. She's like smiling, and it's really cute. And it's like, okay, like they both like each other. They're both interested. And they don't have to say anything, but it's this indication that like I am okay with you painting or drawing me. Like it's a level of intimacy. Yeah,
they've reached a point where Marianne fully sees Eloise. She fully sees her for who she is, and that's why Eloise is finally someone who was so defiant in the beginning about someone painting her, is like letting this person paint her because she knows she sees her. She sees all of her, every part of her, and she can paint it perfectly.
Yeah, and that's like love, like feeling like really seen by someone,
Let's not cry here, guys.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cute because it's so true. It's like, oh, it's love. I'm a sappy love addict.
It is. And it's real love. It's not like the kind of love that films portray often, where it's just like the typical cheesy, like
Mhm.
Hollywood romance. No, this one's really special. So
Where the
special.
characters really had to get into it too. And
Yeah.
they definitely did their part on creating that kind of relationship between each other.
Only the French, man. Only the
Yeah.
French. I swear. They are so romantic. Ugh.
Or any like foreigner, because I don't know if you watch Elite on Netflix, but they're
No.
very touchy, lovey, like even the guys on guys.
I like that. I
Mhm.
think people need to be like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, just us Americans, we have so many stereotypes.
Yeah. Okay, wait, something else I was gonna bring up. I just did some like research into Céline Sciamma as a person. She's so cool. So she dated the actress who plays Eloise
Yes.
for years. Yeah.
Adele
What?
Haenel, yes.
So
That's tea.
and what's so interesting is Marianne is the character that's based off of Celine, obviously, because she's the one
Mhm.
who's writing it. She's the protagonist, and then her ex plays the love interest of her, technically. So that's interesting too. I
Yeah.
thought it must have been interesting to
They
direct her.
Right, yeah, they
Yeah.
seem to have a very like still, even though they're not like no longer romantically together, a very mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
She respects Adele as an actress.
Yes.
Adele respects her as a director, a writer.
They're
And
both
yeah, I
so
like
good at what they do too.
yeah. Oh, there's some serious that final scene. I mean, again, if we're talking about Call Me by Your Name parallels,
Yeah.
the final scene of the character crying, the solo shot of them looking off
Yes.
and crying, but there's some serious acting going on there and it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
good.
No, Call Me by Your Name. That shot in Call Me by Your Name is insane. Like, and then the credits roll, and it's just
Mhm.
Tim Chalamet crying.
You're
Oh,
just like, oh,
there's so
she's
much
watching
emotion.
you. Yeah, and I wanted her to say like, oh, we did see each other a couple more times. Like, no, they only saw each other like 2 more times.
She also says about Portrait that she said in France they don't find the film hot. They think it lacks flesh. It's not erotic. Like, are you kidding me? This is like the most erotic film without being sexual I've ever seen. Like, there's so much tension between these women. It's like it's sexy because it's sexy without being outright having sex scenes. It's crazy.
Yeah. Which you
Yeah.
don't need that. And
I wanted
now
to
film is like incorporating that in every single thing and every single scene. There has to be like an intense sex scene where you're like almost seeing everything happen. And I'm like, am I watching porn or am I watching a film? Like, what am I doing?
It's just exploitative. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I kind of like have mixed feelings about the I mean, obviously like we know they had sex and we know they make out and we see that. It's not like they're
Yeah.
not showing us that. But like yeah, I was sort of like, well, there is sort of a like lack of representation, especially like respectful representation of like same-sex sex.
Yes.
And like I think it would be important to normalize that.
Right. Right.
Um, but like I also do see potentially where Celine Sciamma was coming from in terms of not wanting to like objectify her actresses, not
Yeah.
wanting to appeal to like the male gaze, like blue is the warmest color, you know.
Yeah. Off of that though, I just think that like we should only incorporate things when they're important to the plot and to the way we want to make the audience feel. And I think Portrait does everything it needs to do without that, you know? I think it is important to represent like gay sex in movies that isn't like porn and isn't like
Mhm.
I agree with that. But I think this movie in particular just didn't need it. Like we already have so much intimacy through gay through gay gazing. um, that I just feel like we didn't need the sexual aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, like, I totally agree. I don't think it needed that much more intensity when the intensity was already there between the relationship that was, growing.
Yeah, and it's like not every film needs to be hot, like quote unquote, like obviously, like in a lot of French movies, there's like a lot of sex, and I guess that's like appeals to humans that are attracted to sex because we all like that. Like it's nice to see, but but
Nice to see, even if it's fake.
yeah, even if it's fake, you can imagine. But for this one, it felt sexy. It felt so sexy without that. Like I was like, geez, these women just have this huge connection, and I'm like fanning myself. And they're both so gorgeous too. As my bisexual self, I could have died. Like, especially Adele. I think she's so naturally beautiful. They didn't even put any freaking makeup on them. Like, it was insane.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, it just didn't look like it. Maybe if they did, it was so light. But
Very
you could tell the
minimal,
textures and their face and everything. I was like,
Keep it natural. Have you noticed though that there's always a blonde and a brunette?
yes. So, and I am guilty of doing this because my first film, Necromantic, that I made, we had a blonde and a brunette. And I just think that that's just like so stereotypical that there's always a blonde and brunette in like lesbian relationships. And obviously like that shouldn't be how it is in every film, but there totally is.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening. This has been Film Spill, a movie night podcast. Thank you to Jordan for being our lovely guest this week.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast talking with you guys. You guys are like great conversationalists, and I love everything we've talked about today. I can't wait to see more of these episodes, hear more of them, and to hear like what else you guys choose to talk about, because this is dope. So thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure having you here and having you tell us our astrology charts. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I got to learn so much about you guys. I will tell you guys what's going on with ONYX right now. We have our Based on Her True Story anthology series, which is 5 episodes with a different ONYX director for each episode, telling a story from their real life. And that is being released most likely August 20th. Then we have Noxious, which is my film that I directed and produced and worked on for almost 1.5 years, and it's being released on August 6th, and that's coming up really soon, so check that out. And then I'm directing a music video that's coming out soon. It's for a song called Without You, and it's by Indigo Hills, so stay tuned for that. And then we have a feature film coming out, our ONYX's first feature film we produced, called This Is How It Starts.
Yeah.
And it's a horror and acid horror film, so there's a lot of trippy elements to it. And it's set in the 1950s. That's going to be fun. Stay tuned for that. And an actor that was just in the movie Zola that came out, the A24 movie, is also in it. So there's some good cast. Stay tuned for all that, and follow us on Instagram at onyx.films. And our website is onyx-films.com. And our email, if you want to contact us, is onyx.films.contact@gmail.com.
You heard it, guys.
Great.
From the one and only Jordan Pfeifer.
You can follow us at Film Spill Pod on Instagram. We'll be back next week with an episode on Dee Rees's film Pariah, 2011 film.
I love
Pariah. Yes.
I haven't watched it yet, so I'm excited.
You'll love it. It's so good.
Yeah, and then editing is done by Miss Chelsea, and the cover art is by me, Jackie. And until then, don't cry over a spilled film.